If you've ever had the kind of relationship where it doesn't matter what the topic is, every time you have an idea or a thought or a memory around that topic, around that conversation, and you start to share that, the other person on the other side of the conversation or the other side of the relationship feels like they've got to weigh in with the same idea or concept or story or experience, only theirs has to be more elaborate, more beautiful, more wonderful, more, we call it one-upsmanship. And the challenge for a lot of people, especially people who've succeeded in life, they've accomplished a lot, is they like to let people know what they've accomplished and how they've succeeded and what their path is. And it's really easy to get caught in the trap as a leader, as a mentor, as a coach even. It's really easy to get caught in the trap of feeling like every story has to have a rebuttal or every conversation has to have both sides. It's really easy to get caught in the trap of allowing someone to cause you to express your own ideas and your own thoughts when what they really need is time to think for themselves. That's one of the challenges of leadership, but sometimes simply listening has its own value. And I'll tell you why. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. If you've ever had that conversation with someone where every time they mention something you feel like you need to reply or rebut, or if they tell you how awesome their car is or their pet is or their date is, and you feel like rather than just hearing what they have to say, you need to tell them how awesome your car or your pet or your date is, then chances are you've got what may be or seem like an equitable relationship. But the reality is you have a competition. You have a competition. You have a competition to prove to the other person that you're just as valuable or just as important or just as influential. Now, this is probably true in your life as it has been in mine and the lives of just about every human that I've encountered. Many of us, even though we wouldn't admit it, we think out loud. And when I say we think out loud, what I mean by that is we often will be in the middle of a conversation, and as a new idea comes up, we begin to share that idea. And the challenge in a relationship that is competitive, a conversation that is competitive, that is you share, I share, you share, I share, you share, I share, and one of us has to always be a little better, a little faster, a little stronger, a little more important, a little wealthier than the other one, a little smarter, a little wiser, a little more educated than the other one, a little fancier, a little more special than the other one. That competitive nature stops us from listening. And so if we think out loud, we get shut down. Because when you have a new idea and you want to express that idea, sometimes that idea isn't fully fleshed out yet. Now, I don't know about you, but I love John Maxwell's idea of creating a space in your life, a time and a physical space in your life for thinking. In fact, if you read some of John Maxwell's books, he talks about what he calls his thinking chair. He actually has a chair in his home that's dedicated to thinking. That's all he does in that chair. When he goes to that chair, he's thinking. Now, he might take a journal and he might take another book, but usually it's just him and his thoughts. And the reason for that is to take those new ideas that come to mind, those notions, those innovations, those relationships that need a little tweaking, and just let them mull around in your head until you can stretch the idea and kind of poke holes in it and figure out what part of this new notion is worth holding on to. But most people don't have a dedicated space. They don't have the time set aside in the day, and they don't have a thinking chair. Because they don't have a thinking chair, what that means is that any of these ideas that kind of get stretched and pulled and they get the Laffy Taffy effect of working out an idea, that usually happens in conversation. And it usually happens in conversation with people that they know and like and trust. Friends, coworkers, colleagues, or even a brand new person in their life that they just hit it off with. They feel like there's a common ground. Oh, well, you like dogs and I like dogs, and you like cars and I like cars, and you like vacations and I like vacations. And here it's like we're friends all of a sudden because we all like the same things. And it's real easy to get caught in that trap as a leader where you're sharing those common experiences, you're building that rapport, but you're not really listening to what they're saying, because sometimes that listening isn't about what you hear. Let me say that again. Sometimes listening isn't about what you hear. The difference between a coach and a mentor, according to my coach, Christian Simpson, is that a mentor generally has been down the path, and they're going to take you down the path. They're going to show you the pitfalls, show you where the landmines are, walk you through the process to help you get ahead. They're probably going to settle you straight on some ideas pretty quickly. They're going to tell you what you're viewing wrong or doing wrong. That's a mentor. Why? Because they've already been there. They're already ahead of you in this process. A coach, on the other hand, is going to spend a lot more time asking curiosity-based questions. Not because they're just curious, although that's a good reason for a coach to ask curiosity-based questions, but because they know the old word educo means to draw from within. It means you've probably already experienced the thing that's going to set you up for success in the next level. You've probably already been through something that's going to give you the idea you need to make your next million, to build your next relationship, to save your job, to save your marriage, whatever it is. You've probably already had the experiences, but you haven't really thought through the process. You haven't walked it out. You haven't stretched it like Laffy Taffy. So the role of a good coach is to ask those curiosity-based questions that cause you to think through what you already know. Not to tell you what to think, not to tell you what they know, but to ask the questions so that you will think through what you already know. And trust me, it's real easy when you like to talk as much as I like to talk, when you see the results of effective communication in somebody else's life. It's real easy to presume that's the best way to solve the problem. And it takes intentional awareness and self-discipline to ask curiosity-based questions and then not talk. But the benefit of that, of asking those questions and then not responding except with more questions, is that the individual that you're simply listening to is processing a whole lot of thought on their own. It's a challenge for me sometimes because I think very fast, and a lot of times I'll kind of see the direction they're going with their thought long before they do. It requires discipline and intentional awareness to simply listen. As a leader, if you want to see great impact, great influence, deeper leadership influence in the lives of people around you, become aware of when you are simply listening versus when you're trying to train, when you're trying to teach, when you're trying to mentor, when you're trying to give advice from your own experiences rather than letting someone come to the conclusion on their own. It's an old sales phrase that if I can get you to buy into this idea, then it's no longer my idea, but it's yours. And if it's your idea, an idea that's yours is not going to get rejected. An idea that's mine may or may not get rejected. And there's a whole host of reasons. But if the idea is yours, chances are you're going to stick with it. You're going to commit to it. You're going to follow through with it. It's easier to do that when I'm listening than it is when I'm talking. When I understand what your ideas are to begin with, it's a lot easier to ask you the questions that would lead you to conclusions. Now, this is not about manipulation. It's about allowing someone to think through the process until they come to the conclusions that are healthy and true and accurate. And as a leader, as a coach, as a mentor, you have the foresight to be able to see when they might be going off track, when the thinking that's leading them to that conclusion is not solid thinking, and you have the opportunity to question that. But you have it a lot more by listening than you do by talking. So if you're a leader who wants to grow their influence, spend more time listening. And by that I mean simply listening. Not to reply, but to ask more questions. Because you may have nothing to say of worth to them. The value may be in what they discovered that they've been thinking all along, but they've never expressed. And the first time it comes out of their mouth, they think, wow, I didn't realize I thought like that. I didn't realize I felt like that until I actually said it. I challenge you as leaders to spend more time simply thinking and allow those that you influence to process their own thoughts. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.